welcome to No Broken Legs. I am your host, Evan Belfiore. Joining me on the phone for this Tragedy Tuesdays, Jimmy Champ. Jimmy, how are you today?
Oh, man, I could be a lot better, but I'm okay, brother. How about you?
Yeah, just a really frustrating game to watch when the Browns were missing 8 starters due to COVID. They were missing a couple others due to injury, and they basically didn't have half their roster for the game. They fought really hard, but there's just a few plays here and there where you need guys to step up, and they just didn't step up.
Yeah.
And I guess the first place to start would kind of be with your boy DPJ. That his drop on was that the second drive or the first drive? But that was just a backbreaker.
It was either the second or third drive in the first half. One of the two.
Yeah, it was just a backbreaker.
You have to catch that. Yeah, there's no, we've gone back and forth. You believe DPJ could be a solid number 2 in this league. I believe he could be a low end 1. Last night he showed he's definitely not there to that low end 1 yet. That's a catch you have to make, right? New quarterback, a lot of new pieces, guys that haven't been out there. DPJ's been out there. Those are balls he's been catching all year. You can't let that guy punch that ball out of there. You got to do a better job with your body, getting him out of the way. You got to do a better job of holding on to that ball. That changes the whole complexion of the game. If he catches that ball, it would have got if anything, if he catches that ball, it gets the defense off the line of scrimmage immediately. Like from that drive on, it would have backed up the defense, but they weren't worried because we couldn't catch passes. So, yeah.
Well, and also the lack of arm strength from Mullins.
Yeah,
he looked like he had worse arm strength than Case Keenum, who doesn't have very good arm strength. And just as a memo for all the people that think Baker Mayfield stinks, just the difference in arm strength is so noticeable. I don't even know what people are looking at if they think you can dink and dunk constantly like that and consistently win football games. I mean, they had to do it for this game, but and DPJ also had another, I think it was a third down play where it was a contested catch that he didn't come down with. And I've said this year that it seemed like the Browns didn't really have that extra gear when they needed to dig deeper and show more. And I think we're finding out which players can dig deeper and which ones can't. And it looks like DPJ just doesn't have that extra gear.
Oh.
They're fighting for their playoff lives, and he dropped an easy catch, and then he couldn't come up with a big third down that they needed that got knocked out of his hands. And I don't just want to put everything on DPJ because it wasn't just his play that really hurt them, but McLaughlin's got to make kicks. He's been missing a lot of kicks the last couple of weeks, and his missed field goal was the difference in the game.
Yep, he has to make that kick. Granted, he made the first one. Then they iced him. He missed the second one. There's no reason to miss a kick you just made.
Yeah.
Just do it exactly how you just did it. Because the second one, the ball was never inside the goalpost.
He just flat out missed it.
It's unacceptable. I mean, for about the last 4 weeks now, he's kicking it about 50% on field goals. You're not going to be able to win games like that. Those are two big plays. And then, one of the biggest things we've harped on for weeks now is the biggest players on the team making the biggest plays. I have a problem with Denzel Ward giving up that touchdown to a wide receiver who's not better than him. He's got to be able to break up that play, and he wasn't able to do it. Miles looked gassed most of the game, but he wasn't.
Well, it was the same old story with Myles Garrett. They're holding him, they're grabbing him, they're pulling him down. It's happening every play basically, and the offensive lines are just daring the refs to call it, and they're just not calling it.
Yep, and he was a fingertip away from blocking that field goal, which is just got to be killing him. So it is rough. It was such a battle in the second half, but at least for right now, Browns fans, I would like you to put to bed that Alex Van Pelt needs to call plays, and we've talked about it as well. But on that third down play after the interception, any play other than what you ran on third down was the acceptable play.
I would have liked, if they were going to run the ball there, I would have liked them to do more of, it seemed like when they were able to pull linemen from one side to the other, those were the running plays that were the most effective. And they had Dearness Johnson on that screenplay. Oakland's line saw it and made a good play, and he was able to tackle Dearness from behind and keep them from getting a first down. That was another big play. It just seemed like a day where every 50-50 thing went against the Browns. They, Renfro muffed 2 punts. Mm-hmm. He just fumbles 2 punts, but they stay near him, and they never really had any trouble with that. And then they had the fumble. Yeah, they had the fumble on the sideline that went backwards and just seemed to fall right into. I think that was Renfro again who recovered that. They did get the one fumble on Carr that was a big moment, but there were just a lot of little plays that could have gone either way, and they seemed to go Vegas's way.
Yep, I believe they kicked. The Raiders got a field goal on the drive where that questionable pass interference call.
They ended up punting because that was when they had that was after that pass interference was when they had that fumble that led to the big loss over there by the sideline. So they ended up punting on that one, but that hurt them in field position quite a bit. I didn't really like that pass interference call, but I also think Greedy got away with one or two later in the game. So I'm not gonna harp on that too much.
It's just so, and I think most Browns fans this morning would feel better if Cleveland would have got blown out in that game, because I don't know if there was ever a point in that game where I actually thought the Raiders were going to win. Like, they had no ability to put the Browns away. And you just needed one more scoring drive. Maybe you needed to let Mullins throw a little bit more early, but, I think if DPJ catches that ball, that you're in field goal range, hopefully, right there. But Chase has to make that field goal. Denzel can't let that touchdown happen. And that third man, that would have been, especially with how well Mullins played on that drive to score the touchdown, you then come back and completely take the ball out of his hands. Like, that would have been the perfect time to, run the play action stretch and throw in Njoku a screen on the other side. Like, or go shot, like something different other than everybody watching and in that stadium knew that was going to be that stretch zone play that hadn't worked all day. Like, it hadn't worked all day, and you try it in the most important play, and it's just so frustrating. It was right there. And it's so unfair to criticize the defense for not being able to hold them out of field goal range. But after the holding penalty, letting whoever that receiver was, I believe it was Foster Moreau, letting him catch that ball, get the first down, and get out of bounds.
Yeah, that was a backbreaker.
3 defensive players. Like, that can't happen. So there were just a handful.
It just looked like all of them were looking at each other thinking the other guy was going to make the play. And that was very frustrating.
As opposed to all 3 of them going for the tackle. Yeah, I agree. So there were plays there that were rough. And, and then the thing that's the most annoying about it, I think what most Browns fans would like would be for this game to be over and the season to be done. And that's not even the situation.
No.
So it's just going to be another nerve-wracking 3 games. Because, the Browns could lose to the Packers and still win the division. Like, it's going to be a mind-boggling 3 weeks in the AFC North. It's so frustrating.
I think everybody's saying that the season's officially over is, I think, kind of overreacting, especially given the circumstances that this season's been played on. And I was watching some of the national coverage, and it's just so exhausting to hear how they talk about the Browns. You've got Chris Broussard mentioning Baker Mayfield right off the top when he talks about this game, and Baker didn't even play because he was on COVID. And then he's suggesting that it's, the 1 or 2 days that he shoots Progressive commercials are why Baker struggled this year, instead of the fact that he's got a bunch of injuries. And just all of the talk around this team is just so fucking dumb that it's really infuriating to hear people talk about this team in this, they like the Browns are measured like the Kansas City Chiefs are measured. The difference being the Kansas City Chiefs have, in the last 3 years, gone to 2 Super Bowls and an AFC title game and won a Super Bowl, and the Browns haven't. Like, the Browns are 4 years removed from going 1-31 over a 2-season stretch. And they just, the expectation game that people have with this team, they don't want to get off the expectation of this as, oh, well, they should have won the Super Bowl this year, even though I think a lot of us thought that they would be better than last year, but still not win the Super Bowl. And when you add in the injuries and all of the new faces, and it's been a season from hell for the Browns. It really has been.
I'm gonna stick with where I am, and people are tired of me hearing me say it, but even if you lose to the Packers, if you beat the Steelers and the Bengals, and you go 9-8 and you go 4-2 in the division, I don't care whether you go to the playoffs or not. In my opinion, the season was a success. It was not a peak, right?
That's progress. If they go 9-8 and 4-2 in the division, that's progress. And
you didn't reach the ceiling, but this was not the floor.
No, because we've seen teams like this just completely bottom out and not even try. I mean, we just talked about them going 1-31, but even before that, they had a lot of years where, yeah, maybe they got the 3 or 4 wins, but you could tell that the team just they weren't a team and they didn't have a direction. They clearly have a direction now, and we'll see what they do in the offseason to boost this roster and fill some holes and add some depth, because this is going to keep happening moving forward. With the 17-game schedule, teams are going to be dealing with more injuries. Depth is going to become even more important. And just how are teams going to deal with it, and how are fan bases and the media going to react when teams are regularly just too injured and just sort of run out. They just sort of lose the war of attrition. And Baltimore's in that same spot where their team's just sort of falling apart, and they just can't keep guys on the field. Like, what do you do?
Yep, I was like, I don't understand anybody that went on any form of media and criticized Harbaugh for going for 2 in that situation. Like, I don't understand it. Like, it's just, there's just such this divide between people that just don't understand, seemingly somehow don't understand that 2 is greater than 1 and 7 is greater than 3.
Look how they covered the Chargers.
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
They should have kicked those field goals. Yeah, but they went for a 4th down and they got a touchdown on one of those. So why doesn't that count for them when you're counting the field goals they should have kicked against them? And I'll keep saying it. This is a process over results thing. The media and fans love to harp on results because they don't understand what it actually takes to win football games. And to win football games, you have to have a good process.
Well, and that's something like, I've talked about it. I've been critical about it. You kind of let me go off on rants about it. But, a gentleman that works for me at my work was fortunate enough to grab him some $12 dog pound seats for last night's game. And he said, the thing that is one of the most infuriating thing of being in a Browns game are all the casual fans that really have no idea when to cheer and when to shut up. And it's the absolute truth. Like, there were so many times last night where Nick Mullins had to cover his ear to try to hear a play. Like, guys, let the new guy hear what his coordinator's telling him, man.
No, Jimmy, you guys are totally wrong. Remember, it's Baker Mayfield's an asshole for telling fans to be quiet when the offense is starting to go. Like, he got butchered for that same comment, and it hurt him in this game where I don't know, but maybe that's the scoreboard operator needs to get their shit together, because when they put those things up there on big downs in the game I went to against Arizona, this is a big offensive set, and you've got all this, everything in the stadium's going, get loud, get loud. It's like, no, the offense is trying to call a play. What are you doing?
Shut up! I don't know.
But those are all little things.
They are. But it's just frustrating because so many players on that team last night played good enough to get a win, and there were just a couple spots where they just weren't good enough, and that's kind of been the season,
losing Tack McKinley,
it was big, man.
Soon as he was out, they were able to just do whatever they wanted with their inside run game, and you could tell, like, as soon as he went out, they started attacking there. I think 2 of the next 3 or 4 plays were inside runs that got him nice big chunk yards. And that drive led to a field goal, and they got to get some of these guys back, or it's going to be ugly on Christmas. And I don't know what happens with Pittsburgh and Cincy. Those teams have been so up and down, but they got to get their guys back. they just got to.
Yeah,
Or
hopefully. I haven't seen. Have you seen any reports this morning about Miles?
no, and they haven't said anything about McKinley either. But Tack had just the way he was carted off the field and the way
Yeah,
he was acting made me think that his season's over.
yeah. It looked like I think it was probably an ACL. So that's probably it for McKinley. But they got to get because that was part of the problem. Was it wasn't just the starters that were out last night. It was some of the key depth pieces that missed as well. I did get to see Tommy Togiai made a big play. I don't know if he got credit for a sack because he stopped him right at the yard line.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but it was nice to see Togiai make a play. Once again, JOK popping off the screen, playing really well. Taki actually made a couple nice plays as
Yeah,
well.
I wanted to make sure we mentioned Taki. He had
Yeah.
a nice special
did.
teams play here and there, and then he made a couple of nice
did.
tackles defensively. And if they can get, he's not a guy that they need a lot from. If he can just be okay and make 2 or 3 plays a game, then that's great. That's really all they need of him.
I 100% agree. So that's a little, it's frustrating, but it is what it is. And like I said, there have been so many Browns fans, after the Chargers game, the season was over. After the Steelers game, the season was over. So many people this morning, the season is over. But it's actually not.
Well, the fan base has fired Joe Woods at least a dozen times.
and it's hard because even last night with what he had, they put up a pretty good game plan. But it's still frustrating that every time they blitz, it does well, and they just don't do it more. It's so frustrating.
Well, it seemed like they weren't. They blitzed some yesterday, but they weren't able to get consistent pressure when they were blitzing. And some of that, too, is you've got half of the guys on defense are from the practice squad. So can you do more exotic things with them? Do they know how those plays work? I saw some criticism on Terry Pluto's article. Some of the commenters were saying that, it looked they weren't doing a good enough job disguising stuff. And it's like, well, did the guys on the field actually know what they were doing well enough to disguise it? Or are you worried about making sure that those guys know where they're supposed to be and are actually where they're supposed to be?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. It was just hard because the Raiders just didn't really look like they really wanted to win that game. They never really tried to put a throttle down. They were just doing just enough. And it's just frustrating to lose that one. But like I said, I don't think the Browns are going to beat the Packers, but they also don't have to beat the Packers. Like, if the Ravens beat the Bengals with the way the Ravens season winds up and the way the Bengals season winds up, the Browns can still win the division. They can still make the playoffs. I'm going to keep supporting the team, but we just hope there's more pieces out there for Christmas Day.
One of the things that I still can't wrap my head around with this fan base is the level of discontent with this team that currently sits 7-7 compared to the complete lack of discontent that there was for the better part of a decade after the 2007 winning season when this team was just garbage. And I was very vocal about how bad those teams were in the various Browns groups we're in, and I got absolutely butchered for saying how bad those teams were. And now I'm hearing people tell me that this year's team is just like those teams, even though they've already won more games than those teams, and in many cases have won more games this year than they did in any back-to-back season during that stretch. I don't know what this fan base expects. Everybody seems to be Super Bowl or bust, and if that's the type of fan you are, then you're just going to be an unhappy, discontented fan for a long time. Because when we talk about them as an organization, this is a game they definitely get blown out of 5-6 years ago. That they were able to make it a game and put themselves in position to win. They didn't win it. That's obviously bad, but it is showing growth within the organization that they didn't fall apart with everybody out. It is a show of organizational strength that they're making progress and they're getting better. And despite all of the injuries, despite all of the COVID stuff, despite the inconsistent play that they've had pretty much all over the roster, and a lot of it's been due to injury, I said it maybe a month or so ago that it just looks like the season from hell. But if you're looking at this team and projecting them forward, you don't expect all of this shit to happen again next year. So even something as simple as Jack Conklin playing most of the season, maybe that gets you another win or two, and now that's enough to get you into the playoffs because they've played a lot of close games, and they've been about 500 in those close games as opposed to last year when they won a lot of these close games. That's something. That's just something that happens sometimes. You see teams regress to the mean in these close games, and does luck play a factor in this? Yeah, unfortunately it does because a lot of these games are so close. It just seems like the ball bounces the right way on 2 or 3 plays, and that's the difference.
Yeah, because it's frustrating, and I know they're in a better situation organizationally and for their record for the year, but Cardinals fans are less stressed out about losing to the Lions than Browns fans with the team that was on the field last night are more stressed about losing to the Raiders. It's weird. I do want to give a shout out because I beat him up a little bit. Looked like Schwartz actually ran some good routes last night. Unfortunately, Mullins doesn't have the arm to throw him the ball on the routes he runs, but he ran a couple routes where he absolutely burnt the DB that was on him. So hopefully healthy Baker back, maybe that gets mixed in. Because I agree with you, it's something you've been saying, I need the Browns to draft 4 wide receivers this year.
Yeah, I would. We've talked about it off air. I would love to see them pick up one of the Ohio State receivers, and Olave is a guy that I look at because I think he's a guy that just seems to always catch the ball.
Don't do that. Don't you?
What?
Don't you dare! Don't you dare talk about that! Don't you get my hopes up already? Don't you start? Don't you start? But yeah, I mean, this team is so close, and I agree with you. We talked about it a few weeks ago that maybe this year's Browns team is unfortunately like the Chargers teams of a few years ago, where they had all the pieces when healthy, but they just couldn't be healthy at the same time. And maybe that's what this season is going to boil down to. But I still think they're going to beat the Bengals and the Steelers. And if they do that, they have a winning record, and I'm okay with that. I know there are a lot of Browns fans that are just straightforward. The Browns don't make the playoffs. The Browns don't go to the Super Bowl. It's a lost season, and I just can't act like that. It's not that easy to win football games and change your culture in the NFL when you've proven how hard it can be to have one winning year, let alone having a winning season 2 years in a row. So
yeah, it's been 33 years, 32 years since they had back-to-back winning seasons. So I think that's really, and we've talked about this for a while, that if they're not going to make the playoffs, they got to get to 9 wins. That is a huge benchmark to hit, and I hope that's what they're harping on to try and make sure that this team focuses and wins those last 2 divisional games.
Yep, I agree. I absolutely agree with you.
Any final thoughts here before we'll wrap up, and then we'll get to Green Bay, Cleveland later in the week. But any final thoughts here before we wrap?
I just want to. We didn't really talk about it. I want to say, that was one of the better games I've seen Greedy Williams play as a professional football player.
Yeah.
So kudos to Greedy. Denzel, man, you got to make that play. Oh, DPJ, if you knew the time I spent talking about you, man, you got to make that catch. But I am now more than mildly concerned about Chase McLaughlin. Earlier in the year, it looked like we had the guy, and now I just don't know. So we might still be searching for a kicker. But like I said, I'm going to keep a positive attitude. We'll see what happens against Green Bay. But like I said, Browns fans, I know, it's okay. If you want to be checked out of this season, be checked out of the season. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But they actually can still make the playoffs and even have a chance to win the division. So we'll just see how these last 3 games go and see how this season finishes up for them.
Yeah, and all of those people that say the season's over, if the Browns somehow win 3 games, don't call me for playoff tickets.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for joining me to just sort of go over this on a Therapy Tuesday, Jimmy.
Oh, no place I'd rather be, brother.
And thank you for listening. For Jimmy Champ, I'm Evan Belfiore, and we are No Broken Legs.
Every action has a repercussion. Lyrical bullets don't make me get the